We are OPRF's ECHOPRF team for the summer of 2024. Here's an overview of the school's hydroponics setup and how to maintain, manage, and harvest from it. Hydroponics is a field of farming that is rapidly expanding because of its accessibility and sustainability. With hydroponics, you can grow plants inside, which allows them to grow in any season or climate. It is also very space efficient because you can grow plants vertically or in multiple rows atop each other. Hydroponics also saves a significant amount of water compared to traditional farming methods, despite being entirely based around water, since there's no runoff and the water is being repeatedly reused. Hydroponics is the practice of growing plants in water rather than soil. To provide the plants with the nutrients that they would usually get from soil, we add in our own nutrients to the water. We use a combination of calcium nitrate and a pre-made nutrient mix that contains some stuff like phosphorus and potassium to care for our plants. We test pH with these sticks and measure nutrient levels by measuring electrical conductivity, or EC, because the elements we're introducing can be conductive. In our aquaponics systems, we use the nutrients that come from our aquatic creatures' waste to feed our plants.
The first step to using the equipment in the lab is germination. We use rock-wool plugs to germinate our seeds. Before germinating seeds, consider which plants require similar growing conditions, which ones can be planted in the same system, and which should be kept apart. Different plants prefer different nutrient levels and pH. For example, cucumbers prefer slightly acidic conditions with high amount of nutrients, whereas lettuce thrives in more neutral pH conditions. Different plants also grow in different shapes. Make sure they won't get in each other's ways. In the vertical system, we grow a lot of lettuce and we plant it in alternating rows so that it has space to grow.
Once you've decided on your seeds, plant one seed into the indents at the top of each piece of rock wool. Make sure to plant a few extra in case some don't make it. Once you've planted the amount of seeds you want to use, place your plugs with the seeds facing up in a tray with a thin layer of water at the bottom. Spray the plugs until they're visibly damp and then cover them with a lid that will keep some of the water from evaporating away. Make sure to label your containers and/or take some notes on what you are planting. Different seeds take different amounts of time to germinate. Once some of your seeds have germinated, you can set them up in the systems. We have 3 hydroponic systems in the ECHOPRF lab. There's a raft system, an NFT system, and a vertical system. We have 2 raft systems. They get their names from the way the light styrofoam floats atop the water, similar to a raft. Inside the tubs, there are air stones that circulate the water and provide oxygen to the roots of the plants, which grow in the water and across the bottom of the raft. As with all the systems, make sure to refill the water frequently and add in nutrients as they are taken up by the plants. Excessive nutrients in the rafts can lead to algae growth on the inside of the tub and around the styrofoam, which can be easily cleaned off. Lettuce and tall vine crops such as tomatoes work especially well in the rafts.
In our lab, we have 2 NFT systems. NFT stands for nutrient film technique. Nutrient-filled water is stored in a reservoir below the system and then pumped through tubes in a sort of film that prevents algae from growing because of the perpetual motion. One drawback of the NFTs is that they break more often than the rafts. The tubes tend to disconnect and it requires frequent maintenance. Also, similarly to the rafts, it needs to be refilled quite frequently and should be kept at about 3/4 of the way full. We found that lettuce and leafy greens grow better in NFTs because bigger viney plants tend to fight for space both in and on top of the system.
Our final system is the Vertical Flex Farm system by Fork Farms. Nutrient fortified water circulates from the tubs at the bottom to the top of the system, where it falls and passes over the roots of the plants. The system has its own nutrients, labeled nutrients A and B, and an instruction sheet explaining its maintenance was given to us by Fork Farms. Just like the other systems, the vertical system needs to be refilled frequently. The tubs at the bottom should be about 3/4 full at all times. The vertical system is mainly for growing lettuce, but we recently introduced some basil. We also have an aquaponics system featuring Toff the red-eared slider. Because of the risk of salmonella, we do not recommend harvesting or eating any of the plants that grow above her tank, but it's a great example of aquaponics, the practice of using aquatic creatures' waste to fertilize plants. We're also currently working on an aquaponics system featuring shrimp. With some of our plants like lettuce and bok choy, we can use the cut and come again method, where we cut most of the fully grown leaves and leave smaller ones to allow the plant to continue to grow and replace the leaves we've cut. This way, we don't have to completely replant them. With other plants, try not to wait too long to harvest them.
Part of how we educate the community on hydroponics at OPRF is through working at farmers markets. We table at the Oak Park and Austin markets to provide our community members information about the why and how of hydroponics and sell hydroponic kits to help people get started on their own at home.
To make a simple tabletop hydroponics kit, you need a wide mouth mason jar, net pot, leca, cocoa coir, and nutrient mixes. First, fill a net pot halfway with leca pebbles, and then halfway with cocoa coir. You can plant a seed there, or you can take a partially grown plug from one of the systems in the lab. Feed the roots through the net pot, and then add leca pebbles and cocoa coir. Here's a list of plants that we've noticed to do well or do not do well in the hydroponics kits. Then fill a bucket with water. Mix in equal amounts of calcium nitrate and nutrient mix until the EC reads about 1. Note that different plants can have different preferred ECs, so you can add extra to certain individuals after. And then use water that fills up jars for your planted net pots. Fill the jars to be an inch below the opening so that the water reaches into the net pots but doesn't overflow. Then set the plants up under grow lights and let them grow.
Sometimes the plants in the kits get kind of floppy, so we keep the kits in front of a fan to simulate wind and make their stems stronger. You may want to invest in sticks to keep them standing if they're having extra trouble, though. Because hydroponics is playing a big part in the future of farming, it's important that we educate more community members to promote the growth of the field. Especially as students, a lot of you are looking for new opportunities to learn and explore career paths and interests, and the school's hydroponics lab is an excellent opportunity to do just that. Hydroponics isn't just about growing plants. There's aspects like activism, engineering, and education that are just as valuable to the field.